without further ado, we welcome in a man who went at Steve Kerr pretty hard after Game 6. Probably owes him an apology. We'll see if he does or if he'll offer an apology. I get the sense if we urge him enough, we might be able to get Cy to apologize to Kerr.
How about that Grant super chat again?
What's that?
How about that Grant super chat to get things going? The first one.
Oh, yeah. Welp, Cyrus, thank God Kerr played Kuminga to save us. You owe Steve an apology.
And without further
ado, a man who's here to apologize to Steve Kerr, Cyrus Saatsaz.
You're right. F that. Carl, great to see you, brother.
What's happening?
Been a while, man. Good stuff. Hello,
Miss
everybody.
you, Cy.
Good to see you.
Cy, what'd you think? You were rough on Steve. I was too, a little bit.
You call that rough? He makes $18 million a year. He's in a position of incredible privilege and power. And my words, this nobody right here, is being rough. No,
you were banging on him pretty good.
Yeah, I am. I'm the only one.
Oh, wait. Sorry about that. There we go. Do you want to apologize to Steve?
No. Hell no.
Even a little bit?
No. Hell no. If I had the power to fire him today, I'd still do it. But I will say this. Buddy Hield.
I love a man who doubles down.
He doubles down.
Bravo, man.
Splitting his aces.
I mean, look, the Warriors, Kerr finally in Game 7, after rolling the dice, I don't know how many games with Buddy Hield, he finally crapped or hit whatever the number is that he had the marker on, an 8 or whatever it is. Congratulations. You got what you looked for in Game 7. Should not have never gotten to this point. Okay, this should not have been a situation today. I am relieved and thankful and grateful that we don't have to face a summer of talking points regarding a 3-1 deficit that Stephen Curry blew again. I was not looking forward to that. I was cringing thinking about that because the seeds from the LeBron fans and the Steph haters were being planted everywhere for that 3-1 deficit. And we were this close. So, no, I'm not going to absolve Steve Kerr for getting this close to the Warriors being upset in round 1. But Buddy Hield, man, that's a whole other talking point because he was fantastic. I'm sure you've exhausted that to no end. But
no, we haven't even mentioned him yet. No. We like to get deeper into some of the finer points. We've been talking about the zone versus Buddy Hield. Obviously Buddy Hield is the headliner tonight and the greatest game of Buddy's career. And Rye made the point that maybe, it was the kind of performance where, he may actually demonstrate a little gravity on the basketball floor in the Game 1 Warriors T-Wolves. Look for Buddy to have some guys running at him because of this performance. I was kind of hoping for the bigger hope, which is that could Buddy get hot the way that Wiggins got hot as far as a rebounder? Could Buddy get hot shooting the 3 ball? And if he did, I mean, could he carry the Warriors to the title?
What's that noise, by the way? Why is there music or something humming? Do you guys hear that?
Carl's got a little music going in the background.
No big deal. We're just doing a broadcast, and Carl's got his TV on in the background. No big deal.
It's not TV.
Wait. Jazz music. Jazz music.
Just a little jazz.
Calm everybody down.
It's just a little jazz.
Can you span the camera so we could see the masseuse?
Gotcha.
I wish my wife wouldn't go for that.
But dude, I what are you guys thinking about? The one thing Rick and I did not really get too into. So I don't know if I timed this right or how much you've talked about this. We did not really preview Warriors T-Wolves. What do you guys think about that? Have you?
We've already covered it.
Oh, so it's over. Okay. Well, great show.
Sorry, we
Thanks
can't
for
do
having
it.
me. I appreciate it.
No. Yeah, we covered it. Can't talk about it again. That was in the first semester. This is now in the second semester.
Rye, I want to give Rye credit because a few months ago, I don't know if Rye, you tweeted it or you DM'd me. I can't remember what the context was, but you did say that you were afraid of the T-Wolves and you did not want the Warriors to play them. And my response to you at the time was the Warriors won the season series 3-1. Like relax a little bit on the panic button. But I'm going to backtrack now because those 4 games were so long ago, and Minnesota is a completely different team, like night and day, man. Like Julius Randle has figured it out. Dante DiVincenzo is back to being the Dante everyone knows. Anthony Edwards is Anthony Edwards. And side note, the reason why you'll never get an apology from me for Steve Kerr unless they win the championship, then I'm getting a goddamn tattoo.
Well, are you thinking about later tonight? Maybe apology.
I'll think about it.
You got to tease the apology side. That's how we're going to have some attention for later in the show.
Maybe you guys will convince me.
If we get a certain number of super chats, Cy will apologize.
Again, if the Warriors win the title, I'm getting a goddamn tattoo on my body of Steve Kerr. So that is where I will acknowledge Steve Kerr's greatness, and I will admit that I'm wrong. That's like
TMI right there. That's a little, you know what I mean? I mean, that might.
If I said I was going to put it on like my penis, I would say that's TMI. But the fact that I didn't say that until just now, and then now it's TMI. It wasn't TMI 10 seconds ago. Anyway,
note to Kev at 1 hour and 9 minutes and 7 seconds. We'd like to have an edit in the show at 1 hour, 9 minutes and 7 seconds. Thanks, Kev. Edit in the show.
Fantastic executive producer, by the way, Kevin.
See how I did that? Just
it's
amazing. It's an amazing thing.
But the T-Wolves scare me is what I'm trying to say, man. Like they do scare me a little bit. And Steve Kerr, the reason why I brought that up again in terms of why I will not apologize, the Warriors could have had Anthony Edwards. They don't have Anthony Edwards because of Steve Kerr. I'm not letting that go. My entire issue with Steve Kerr is where's the accountability for mishap after mishap after mishap? There never is any. The guy can just do no wrong. I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that they blew it with Anthony Edwards, and now they might lose to him. This is why.
Can I ask this question, son?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How could they have had Anthony Edwards?
Because the Timberwolves wanted to swap picks with him, and Steve Kerr, when he evaluated Anthony Edwards. Why are you shaking your head? Why are you shaking your head at me?
That's not true.
Brian Windhorst reported that as a fact. So you're saying he's a liar?
That's not true. Brian Windhorst doesn't have facts because he's not a GM. He can tell you something somebody told him.
How do you know it's not true, though?
It's not true.
How do you know? How do you know, Carl?
Okay, so from what
your opinion. Okay, that's your opinion. All right,
it's not my opinion.
I
know Brian.
How do you know my sources tell me.
So you're telling me your sources you have sources that are more reliable.
Okay, first of all, let's break this. Let's break this up. Word around the HOA is that no, I was just either way. I'll say this: we don't whether they could have had him or not. They had the second pick. They could have had him or LaMelo. Instead, they went with the marshmallow known as
Larry. Don't let this go. Larry, don't let this go. Carl, why are you saying that? Like, what are you basing that
on?
Why
you said Brian Windhorst has a fact. You can't have a fact.
Why are you calling him a liar? Because he stated it like it's a fact. So why are you accusing Windhorst of lying about this?
You didn't hear me say he's lying?
You told me it's not true.
No, what I told you is that's not true. I didn't tell you what Brian Windhorst said isn't true. What he said is what he was told.
So how do you know what he was told?
When you're not making a decision and you're being told something, you can only go by what you're being told.
Okay, so why do you think what he was told wasn't true?
It's not true.
Why? Why do you say that?
I don't have a why for you.
Okay, then how am I supposed to? How can I take you seriously in this, Carl? If you're not going to answer the why part of it, that's the most important part.
There is no why.
Okay, well then, all right.
Carl doesn't want to give up his source, and there you go. He obviously has a source.
How do you say? You say obviously. I didn't even hear he has a source. Like what? It's not.
Well, he's not just stating it. He's stating it definitively, and we know Carl's not the general manager for either team.
I'm not the general manager of either team.
So do you have a source that's told you otherwise, Carl?
Here's what I'll tell you. Anthony Edwards plays for the Timberwolves.
Yes.
And they drafted him.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm willing to get into a little more.
Carl. Did you know water's wet? I mean,
I do know sky's blue, and I know if you have the number 2 pick, you can't take the number 1 player.
You can.
There was no doubt that Minnesota was going to take the number 1 player.
Why do you believe that?
Okay.
What's going on here, man? Carl, you're a smart, intelligent person. Why are you acting like I'm asking?
Remember, you're not Brian Windhorst. I'm
not.
No. So
you're not Cyrus Saatsaz. I don't get what any of this. What's happening here, man? What's going on, Carl?
Okay. I think. Okay, let me get into some speculation because I will openly speculate because I have no sources and I listen to a lot of podcasts. What I heard is that, well, first of all, I heard even if the Warriors had traded up, they were still going to take Wiseman. Wiseman was the guy, and the T-Wolves were trying to bait the Warriors into thinking they were going to take Wiseman. Because the T-Wolves were butthurt that the Warriors got their 2021 pick in that D'Angelo Russell trade, and the T-Wolves wanted that pick back. So they were trying to bait, which ended up becoming Kuminga. They wanted to bait the Warriors into trading up and still taking their guy Wiseman. But and this is where I'll maybe a little bit of a different take. I think there was just no chance the Warriors were going to take Edwards, and I don't blame Steve Kerr.
Why, Rye?
I blame Anthony Edwards. Because he showed up and Bob Myers said it, Steve Kerr said it, even Anthony Edwards said it. He showed up and he didn't have a good workout.
You're just going to absolve Kerr because Anthony Edwards had a bad workout, a 20-year-old kid. You're just going to pretend that Kerr should have no accountability for a wholehearted misjudgment of this guy? Like he called him lazy.
And he admitted that he said that was the turning point in his career.
So what? Steve Kerr couldn't see that maybe this kid can improve his work ethic. I don't believe this, dude. I don't.
Well, I mean, Edwards has to take some responsibility for not every. Well, I wasn't at the workout, so I have no idea what level we're talking about. Right? For all I know, he was incredible, and this is all about nothing. Or he was, literally smoking a pack of Cools on the sidelines, refusing to dribble. And I have no idea exactly what happened in this workout, why it didn't go well. But it sounds like Edwards has taken some ownage of the fact that he was not in a good space right then. And so I think
It wasn't that he admitted he wasn't in a good space. What he admitted to,
but I mean, also the Warriors didn't have that pick, so it's like it's hard. I have a hard time blaming the team that has the second pick for not picking the guy who went number 1. Like I don't blame the Niners for taking Trey Lance over Trevor Lawrence. I don't, because Trevor Lawrence went 1.
Larry, what if you knew the Jaguars would swap with the Niners? And the Niners said, no, we just still want Trey Lance. So there's no point in doing that.
I mean, if I knew definitively, that would change things for sure.
All we can know in this world is what's reported. And this is why I'm going back to Carl saying, like, Carl, I don't understand this weird ambiguity.
Carl also has friends who are agents.
Folks, explain that then. Let's say that.
I don't have to explain anything. All I can tell you is what I said. Brian Windhorst is not a GM. He can be told something, but I will tell you, many reporters have been told something, and it was not the actual thing.
And I keep asking, how do you know that's not true? And you
Carl, just to alleviate this roadblock, I'm gonna jump in.
Give you an answer.
I'm gonna jump in
just because it's a lame answer. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's
that's
not
a ridiculous answer.
Carl
just
has,
because. What the fuck, man?
Wait. Carl has friends who are NBA agents.
So he can't explain that himself? Larry, you have to speak for him.
I don't need to explain that, sir.
But I'm just saying, it's like he doesn't.
I don't need to explain that.
It's a talk show. If you're not going to explain shit, what are you doing here then, man? We're talking. This is
we haven't even gotten into Kuminga.
All right. Just relax. Relax.
You're trashing Steve Kerr. You have the right to that opinion, but you're providing a source that you're an ear witness to information,
and
you're not an eyewitness. How do you know? You were not in the room.
How do you know? You were?
You weren't in the room, right?
Were you?
You said Brian Windhorst said that. You didn't say Cyrus said it.
Yes. And why are you attacking?
You are repeating something someone else said.
I'm asking
and you're hoping that it's a fact.
Carl, I'm asking you straight
You don't
question.
have to ask me. You can move on to the next subject.
I don't want to move on. This is
Well,
my
then
show
don't
too,
do it.
Carl.
I'll leave
This
that
is
to Larry.
my show as much as anyone else is here. If I want to ask you a fucking question, I'm going to ask you. And I'm asking you right now, why are you disparaging Brian Windhorst's credibility?
Did not disparage Brian Windhorst. I said Brian Windhorst is not a GM.
You're literally calling him a liar.
No, I didn't. If that's what you want to perceive, I'll allow you to perceive that.
Well, okay, let me rephrase the question then, since you're
Larry,
trying to do a semantics argument here.
Yeah,
why do you question?
Sai. Let's not bog down the entire show on this one factoid.
Larry,
because
I can't.
It doesn't really matter. We're not going anywhere.
No. I'm not going to let this go until at least get some sort of fucking conclusion here. Carl, why do you question Windhorst's source?
Hey, I will tell you this. I love the way Buddy shot the ball tonight.
This is fucking lame, dude. This is some lame ass shit, man. I'll leave it at that too then.
All right. We don't have to get to the bottom of everything. All right.
Get the jazz music back on.
This is what we do. I don't this is ridiculous.
But we don't have to get to the bottom of everything. I mean, once again, Carl has connections with agents. Windhorst reported this.
He's the only one. Carl, you're the only one that has connections here. You're the only one that has connections here.
Did you ever hear me say anything about a connection? Cyrus, have you heard me mention one word about a connection?
You haven't said anything. You're saying nothing, and that's why I'm frustrated.
All I said was Brian Windhorst is not a GM.
Why do you feel the need to say that?
All right, let's just move on. We don't need to find. I mean, it doesn't. Let's just go. It's a circular conversation. Seymour Butts says, "Belt to ass, Larry. What a win, Dubs in 6."
I can say, dude. I do not. This is not a rational setting here right now, man. I don't get any of this, bro. But
let the jet fly. You can tell Jonathan Kuminga doesn't watch any film and doesn't have that dog in him. Okay, well, that's one of those. I'm not sure how to define that. MSQ says LBJ's longest tenured teammate was Big Z.
Zildrunas Ilgauskas.
Oh, Zildrunas Ilgauskas.
The former All-Star.
Was Clay?
Curry's was Clay and Green.
Oh, Steph Curry's was Clay and Green. I gotcha. Man. NBA Elias. OKC and Minnesota conference finals is a nightmare for the NBA. Ratings wise, yeah. Let the jet fly. Sai. Oh, what the heck? Somebody. This is like Lucky Logger or something. You remember?
I could read that. Sai, it's already known that Lacob wanted Wiseman even at 1.
You know who else wanted Wiseman even at 1? Steve Kerr. And if you want to,
and Bob Myers.
I wrote and Bob Myers too. Joel Lacob has made it very clear, and Steve Kerr has made it very clear. And if you disagree with this, then you're calling them liars in terms of what they've said publicly, that they all wanted James Wiseman. Steve Kerr publicly said that James Wiseman is, quote, his guy. All right. Lacob wanted him, no doubt. But Steve Kerr was smitten with this dude. He was as much into this guy as anyone else. And I still don't see accountability for that. I also don't see accountability for the fact that they gave up on the number 2 pick super fast. They're about to give up on the number 7 pick super fast. That's been my whole point of consternation here is how do you get away with treating these massively valuable assets like such shit? That's the part I don't stomach. This has nothing to do with Kuminga and how good or bad he is. It's about how do you get these assets that are insanely valuable and pretend that they don't mean a thing. And that's Steve Kerr's approach, and I don't like it. Ooh.
Yeah, of course I picked the Rockets to win in 7.
You did. How did you respond to that?
I don't know, but Brady Bryant says I'm a clown. I don't know if I'll ever be able to recover from Brady.
I'm a clown because I hear irrational things.
Is that a fact, Larry?
Yeah. Is it a fact? No, it's not a fact. It's Brady's opinion and his opinion only. All right. What do you guys think as far as, do you think that this series favors Minnesota? A lot of the dialogue was that, you know what, it doesn't matter what happens tonight in Game 7, because the fact that it went 7 and the Warriors, had no rest and they're just limping into this Lions den in the second round against this Minnesota team that's bigger and rested and this and that. Do you guys subscribe to that theory that the Warriors are going down in a big bad way in the second round, and that it's going to be, they're going to pay for their inability to get out of the first round painlessly? Or do you think no, Golden State's gonna go through Minnesota and they're moving on to the conference finals? What do you think?
It's matchup driven. If we look at the game earlier today, you had an Indiana team that played for a long time in a series against Milwaukee, found a matchup, and then let's be honest, missing Winston was a huge impact for Cleveland, but playoff basketball is all about matchups. And in this matchup, the Warriors have a better chance of being able to do certain things than they could in the Houston series. And I love the fact that Minnesota has the ability to be offensive. The question is, will they be able to lock down, defend the Warrior system, and which role players are going to shoot the ball well?
Chris Finch is the head coach.
What do you guys think, Danny? What do you think?
I would favor the T-Wolves in this series. I think it. I hate to say it. It could be a bloodbath. I mean, they're not just like the Rockets as far as athletic. They're good shooters. They're got a good offense. They're big. They're long. They're more experienced. Naz Reid, McDaniels, Rudy Gobert is going to be a problem in just sitting down there in the paint. But I'm not ruling the Warriors don't have no shot. I think the Warriors can pull it off if they're hot from 3.
Got to split. We got to split these first 2.
You got to get they got to get the split. They got to get the split in the first 2.
And honestly, Carl is giving me hope, because I did mentally kind of think that the legs are just a little too tired, and that at least this first game is kind of like, just chalk it up to Minnesota. Even right before I came on here, I was listening to Curry's post game on TNT, and he was just like, man, my brain is fried. I can't really, and he just started naming Timberwolves players. And he's like, Gobert had 20 rebounds in that game. And it just felt like they've just been locked into this series, and now they got to go get on a flight. So I'm definitely worried. One thing that I'm very happy about and I'm very proud of is that before the playoffs started, maybe it was a week before the playoffs started, I was able to get a 30-1 on the Timberwolves to win the West. Wow. Not win the finals, win the West.
Wow.
So that makes me feel really good, which is a great emotional hedge. That's
good, Rye. I got 19-1. Dang.
In terms of entertainment, okay, we've seen Edwards now. Edwards, this is not at all really X's and O's, but Edwards, he got up in Durant. He was barking at Durant, talking shit to Durant, did the same thing to LeBron. Do you think Edwards is going to be, do you think Edwards is going to be doing that to Curry? And B, how much of a Draymond crash out are we getting? Because we can't forget that when the game was 0-0 versus the Timberwolves a year ago, Draymond Green put Rudy Gobert in a full-blown headlock.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so excited to see that. Draymond Green hates Rudy Gobert. I've been waiting for this matchup for a long time. And I mentioned this on the first part. Anthony Edwards, I can't remember when this was. I think this was a year ago. It was a little while ago. But he was asked, which team do you want to play in the postseason the most? And I don't know why that question even came up, but he answered the Warriors. And when he was asked why, he said because he's looking forward to a series where he can trash talk with Draymond Green. The Minnesota Timberwolves are very different from Houston. And one of the biggest differences is shooting. Houston has none, except for Fred VanVleet, who shows up every few games. And Minnesota has Anthony Edwards, who I believe led the NBA in three-pointers made this season. Crazy stat. That's insanely true. Jaden McDaniels is a little streaky, but when he's hitting them, you're in trouble. I don't know if Julius Randle's a 3-point shooter, but I've seen him do it. But Naz Reid is the one that scares me the most, like by far, man. This is like, I mean, the Warriors are a small ball team. They, and Larry, you and I had this discussion 2 days ago about the fact that when you're that short, it suddenly becomes very hard to present an obstacle to opposing shooters, right? Like and this is an example, like GP2 tonight did not play. And I think this was, as crazy as this may sound, advantageous for the Warriors because GP2 is a massive crutch for Steve Kerr. He gives that guy minutes over better players who are also more athletic and taller. And when GP2 is not in the game and you have bigger, taller players, it makes it harder for other teams to shoot. It's just a very simple premise. And Naz Reid kind of neutralizes that element. So he's a 7-footer who can drain threes, and he routinely lights it up against the Warriors. We saw what this team did against LA. Very different team than the Warriors, but still, they're big. They can shoot. They scare the shit out of me. I'm very curious to see how Steve Kerr handles this. I am, because I've said this before, and I'll say it again. A huge reason why I've agreed to put on a Steve Kerr tattoo if the Warriors win the championship this season is because if they're going to win a 5th ring in this era, Steve Kerr is going to have to coach them into it. All right. He can't skate by on talent like he has with a lot of these titles. He's going to have to play the right guys. He's going to have to implement the right schemes, and he's going to have to outcoach Chris Finch in this series. I'm fascinated. I'm riveted. Yeah, we shall see.
You sound skeptical that Kerr. You think Kerr's going to get outcoached. We got this one. MSQ. Cy is like an English teacher that is mad that Carl turned in an essay without a works cited page. Yes. LOL. Also saving money, not using the space bar. LOL.
And it's like if the student then, when I asked the student, why didn't you cite references? And the student says, trust me, bro. I would not. Anyways, move on. I'm
anyway. What do you guys think as far as tonight goes, as far as, is this something that, there's going to be a lot of talk in Houston about Giannis. There's going to be a lot of talk in Houston about they can't shoot. Barkley was kind of setting it up at halftime with, he wasn't going to credit the Warriors. He picked Houston, and when the Warriors were smashing Houston, he just decided, well, I'm not going to credit the Warriors. I'll just smash Houston. So he basically said they don't have anybody who can shoot, which is true outside of Van Vliet. They don't have a bunch of great shooters. What's Houston's move here? I mean, this was a great season for them. They won 50 games. They've got a great young core. Thompson, Sengun, Green, Jabari Smith, Eason. I thought they had some nice weapons or nice role players around those guys as well. But they're thinking big. They're going to go big game hunting. What's the piece that's going to get Houston over the top?
Kevin Durant.
You think it's Durant?
It's the only choice they have. He's the only guy who fits. And they have enough pieces and enough draft picks to be able to put together a deal that would make sense for Phoenix, who's going to literally try to do whatever they can to get Bradley Beal up out of there.
What would that deal look like? Because I don't want to move Thompson.
Thompson's not going, even though they'll ask for him. But Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, Eason, and some draft picks. They're going to have to put a veteran in that deal to make.
No, I don't know
about Reed because he doesn't make any money. They're going to have.
Who's going to go, Carl? It's going to be Carl. It's going to be Cam Whitmore. Is going to be a prize piece, and whoever gets in these deals, because a lot of teams will want him.
Don't say that when Red's on, because Red still wants Cameron Whitmore more than he wants Brandon Pajemski.
Me too. I'm me too. Count me in that too. Like I respect Frank even more for that. Then I obviously.
And
it bothered me
contributions that he made this series were okay. He didn't make any. Cam Whitmore's an athlete, and athletes are great when you can play isolation basketball. But Houston needs a guy that they can center their offense around, and it can't be Sengun because come playoff time, he's not a good enough free throw shooter. He's not a good enough outside shooter for teams to double team him. The Warriors played him with one defender basically the whole series and kind of said, hey, if you can kill us, kill us. It's going to come down to will they pay the $44 million to Fred VanVleet and that player option. That's going to be a huge, huge piece that'll determine what they're going to do this summer.
Well, and the Phoenix doesn't have any picks. Like they're not a team similar to Milwaukee with the Giannis conversation. neither of these teams are teams that can just, all right, we're going to get rid of all our stars and bottom out and then try and get high draft picks. Their draft picks are owned for the foreseeable future for like the next 3 or 4 years by other teams. So they're going to have to do a thing where they get enough back to where it's some high upside guys, but you throw them all together and maybe they can be a play-in team or maybe get in an 8 seed every once in a while. So it seems like I know, and we're talking Rockets, but on the subject of Giannis, because I think he also is a potential guy for the Rockets. I don't see how the Warriors have the assets to go after Giannis when there's teams out there like the Rockets that have 1 million draft picks plus
OKC.
1 million young fun guys. And then you have teams like OKC that are literally a sleeping giant with like 20 first round picks seemingly coming up and like a whole roster of awesome dudes, depending on like how their season finishes this year. It just seems like that's probably not going to happen for the Warriors, but God damn it, it does seem like Giannis is coming west, and that just sucks, man. Just abolish conferences. You don't think he's going to Houston?
Think about it. They'd have to get rid of Sengun.
I think they'd do that. I wouldn't want to get rid of Sengun, but like if you're getting Giannis.
If you're Milwaukee, do you want to be Houston East? I mean, I don't know if that formula is what they're going to be looking for. If we're honest, Houston has the perfect coach for their personnel. They just need one guy who's an outstanding offensive player, and they have some young assets. Fortunately, Jalen Green got paid, so at least that gets them a little bit closer to KD's money, but they're going to have to find a veteran they're going to put in that deal in order to make that deal work. So that's where I see him going. If he goes anywhere, I see him going to Houston.
What do you guys see as Kerr's opening lineup against Minnesota? Give me Kerr's opening lineup. Give me 3 guys that you want to see play off the bench in this series.
I honestly don't. I don't know. I would assume they're probably going to roll out the same lineup they rolled out tonight
with Pods and Hield in the backcourt with Curry, kind of the 3 small guard lineup.
Yep. And then Looney quick off the bench.
Don't forget GP2, another one of Kerr's favorites.
GP2.
Do you know what, Cyrus, what sickness did he have? Did they say? Was it like the flu?
Kerr described it. He said there was some vomiting. Kerr said he woke up this morning feeling like death, and there was vomiting involved. And it was just one of those things where he couldn't go. But the GP2 thing I don't get. I just really don't get it. He has tremendous value as a role player, has tremendous value in spot minutes. But if we saw tonight at the beginning of this game, and I touched on this on the first part earlier tonight, for a brief moment, we saw a 5-player lineup tonight that were on the court. We had Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and Stephen Curry. That 5-man lineup this season played 13 minutes together total all year because Steve Kerr in his mind subjectively thinks they don't fit. There's virtually no analytics that support this notion. He just, in his mind, he's admitted this. He makes these big decisions with his gut. And GP2, the fact that he's ahead of Kuminga in the rotation will forever drive me insane. I don't get it. You're not going to logically explain it to me. It's just Steve Kerr making his subjective decisions. My point is, we saw that 5-person unit tonight on the court, and the world did not end. And they only spent, I think 2 or 3 minutes out there together, but they looked good. And then Kuminga committed 1 turnover, and Steve Kerr was like, no, and just pulled him out. And we saw him again one more time briefly in the third quarter. You need size and athleticism. And Carl, this is where you and I will massively disagree because you think Cam Whitmore is I feel like it sounds like you disparage him because he's an athletic. You say he's athletic like that's a bad thing. I think that's insane, man. Brandon Podziemski, I like him, and I think he's going to be a good player for this team long term. But don't pretend like Brandon Podziemski night after night is playing fantastic basketball. He did not play good tonight, man. 1 of 7 shooting from deep, 9 points. But again, this is where the double standard comes. And people ask, why do you care so much? Why is Steve Kerr such a point of consternation for you? It's because of his double standards. Like, why is Kuminga treated like shit? Kerr will not explain it. There's no details behind it. It's just he doesn't fit. It's just a math problem. That's what he loves to keep bringing up. but Brandon Podziemski can go 1 for 7 from deep and get a pass. I don't get any of this, man. And you ask me why do you have an issue with Kerr? It's because, again, he's literally ruining this kid's life, and he's also not playing the best players. Agree to disagree if you don't believe that. But I liked what I saw tonight when Kuminga was on the floor in that brief moment.
Well, I'll say this. I'm not a coach. My brother's been a very successful basketball coach.
Steve Kerr wasn't a coach before he got hired by the Warriors, Dan, just so you know.
Yeah. But every coach plays to win. Never does anything. If Kerr thought Kuminga gave him the best chance to win, he'd be out there. And tonight I feel bad for the kid in the sense he doesn't get into a flow. He makes mistakes and he's got to come out. But part of that is you have to go with what you're looking at as a coach. And you can't just go, well, I'll give him more time in game 7 because he was the only guy on the Warriors tonight who was negative. I think he was -4 and everybody was positive.
-2 in 7 minutes.
2.
Like that means anything, Dan.
I know, but
he was -4. Not that it really matters.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first half he was -2. You're right. Go ahead.
Okay. But he did make a couple of mistakes, and in a regular season, they're going to let that go. And he's just going to let him play it out. But I think he gave him a shot to see what he could do. And it was
when you say couple mistakes, Dan, well, he had 1 turnover. What's the second one?
He didn't block out at Steven Adams.
He didn't block out.
You mean he couldn't block out Steven Adams because Steven Adams is a massive force who no one can block out if your name is not Kevon Looney. That's a grossly unfair critique, man. But continue. That's insane. This is why I get upset because that kind of rhetoric is bullshit, right? Like he could not block out Steven Adams. Do you really think he failed on that because he didn't try?
Well, I think he tried. Let's not get bogged down on just the Steven Adams thing, but
that?
Okay. He was 0 for 4 shooting. I mean, side. This is one thing about Kuminga. I think specifically in this playoffs where they are not calling fouls. I think that the best thing that Kuminga does during the regular season is get downhill and get to the cup. And that's something they really, outside of Jimmy Butler, something they don't have. But and one thing that's great is he puts refs in conflict. They call a lot of fouls. Since he's been in the playoffs and they're not really calling anything at the cup, he's just getting to the rim and breaking layups.
Thank you. That was so annoying, man. Thanks, dude. Sorry, go ahead.
Carl had to leave at 10. Yeah.
Good. I mean, what kind of nonsense was that, dude? There's a reason why I don't invite him on my show because that was nonsense. I mean, have a normal conversation instead of that bullshit, dude. Like, anyway.
So you didn't want to divulge his source.
Did he even have a source? You didn't even go that far.
I don't know.
I didn't hear shit. Like, what kind of?
I don't want to be conversation police. Right. Let me hit this one. 6 Minute Abs says Cyrus has me rolling. Great to see real convos. F-bombs brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. 6 Minute Abs. No title without JK's 10 to 15. Pods and Moody missing.
That's true. Yeah. And you got it. Cy, also, I think you got to give Kerr props, like with as far as Moody goes, because he's been a little inconsistent with, okay, Moody's going to play a bunch this game. Now he's not going to play as much. I thought he did well with Moody today. He just decided, you know what, Moody doesn't have it.
By just saying go in the game. Like, this is the part I don't get, man. Steve Kerr is a clipboard holder. He just stands there and yells. Yet you have people who are fanboys for this guy. Just that's the part I don't get, dude. The athletes are the ones out there playing and winning, not the coach. The coach has the power to decide who plays and doesn't play.
But you're going at the U.S. Olympic coach. You're going at one of the most successful coaches of his era. You're going at a coach that has no less than a dozen rings, probably, between a coach and a player. I mean, he's
luckiest motherfucker.
He's one of the most accomplished
luckiest motherfucker on the planet. If I had Michael Jordan and Tim Duncan as my teammates, I'd have rings too as a player just sitting on the sideline there. If I had Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant as my players as a head coach, I'd be a championship head coach. He is a lucky motherfucker who just time and time and again is a benefit. He's a benefactor of circumstance, dude. I don't see him doing shit other than that first championship. I will forever give him credit for that. You take that first championship aside, I don't see what the hell is so special about this guy. I don't get it.
Well, I don't like that you make it seem like Steve Kerr is like the Forrest Gump of basketball, and he's just like ended up in all this amazing circumstance.
Right.
I mean, at a certain point, it's like, it's like whether
he
it's
got
Jerry
fired
West
as the GM of the Suns, right? My critique of him is as a personnel guy. He has never proven to me he knows how to evaluate talent. If he was good at it, the Suns would not have shit canned him, man. And the fact that he constantly picks the wrong dudes to play because in his mind he has these weird like ideas for who connects things for. His logic makes no sense to me, man. I'm sorry. I don't get it. Sorry.
Well, anyway, I do think he did a good job. I thought Moody didn't have it today. I thought Moody on defense, he struggles against these smaller, quicker guards, even though he's a good defender. He's a little bit better on wings or bigger guards because his feet aren't very quick, even though he's long and he is a good positional defender. And then he was 0 for 5 from the field, and it just honestly, it kind of looked like he didn't have it today.
This next round, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see, do the Warriors try to play a little bit bigger against this team that has so much size, or does Kerr look at that as the disadvantage and go, you know what, we'll go that much smaller? At times, if you looked at this first round, Houston's best lineup was their 2 big man lineup, and yet Kerr tried to beat that lineup with a smaller lineup. Is he going to do the same thing in the second round?
Honestly, and this is where Cy does feel sometimes a little like Kerr shaking a snow globe. I honestly have no idea what Steve Kerr's I don't know what he's thinking for this game. That's why I would assume that he's going to start with the guys that got him there, probably roll with the same lineup as tonight. But I think Looney earned a ton of respect. I thought it was interesting. Cy, you weren't here for this, but Carl seems to think that Quentin Post is going to get a lot of run and be kind of a hinge point for the series.
He might. It's a good point.
I wonder what your thoughts are on that. I
mean, I like Quentin Post. I like Quentin Post a lot. Sign me up. You're absolutely right. There's no way to predict what's going to happen. We saw game 6 to me was the ultimate chance for people to see who Steve Kerr trusts the most, right? Because that was such a must-win game, as much as tonight was. But game 6, the Warriors treated as a must-win. And there was no surprise from my perspective that GP2 was starting. He started. In what world, no other coach in the right mind starts GP2 unless you're Steve Kerr. And, and I've said time and time and again, and thankfully Kerr is avoiding this 3-player combo for the most part, where Steph, Podziemski, and GP2, those 3 together, that's a 3-guard lineup that fails routinely. Net rating reflects it, eye test reflects it. So I hope we don't see that. We thankfully have. Quentin Post could play a huge role in this. Guy Santos could play a huge role in this. This series is so unpredictable. Like case in point, you look at the 4 games they played against each other this year, and one of the 4 wins for the Warriors, Dennis Schroeder was their starting 2 guard. Side note, in case you wonder why Steve Kerr drives me crazy, yes, he wanted Dennis Schroeder as the starting 2 guard for his team. But Dennis Schroeder was starting. I think GP2 was starting, and they won that game insanely. I don't get it. Andrew Wiggins was the 4. I don't know if you remember that stretch where the Warriors were actually starting Andrew Wiggins as a power forward, and they won. It was insane. I think Trace Jackson Davis was your starting 5 that game. Who knows? I have no clue what to predict for this game. I'm lost.
It's going to be interesting because Minnesota does have a ton of size. O'Shea Barton says BP Brandon Podziemski is a way better defender and rebounder than Jonathan Kuminga.
Do you guys agree with that?
I don't think there's no way, there's no universe where he's a better defender. He might be a better rebounder because he does go to the glass with ferocity going back to his Santa Clara days, and he brings that almost all the time. Kuminga, if he devoted himself to defense and rebounding, easily could do it. But he's, this guy that's kind of young in the game, and there's not a lot of consistency. I don't, is that on him? Yeah, it's on him, but it's on them too. I mean, he's been on their team for a number of years now, and it's like, hey, if you couldn't express to him what you need from him, it's like, are you communicating well with him? He's a great talent. I know he's going to be good for somebody, but it's unfortunate. It doesn't look like it's going to be here. Talk to him nice, says Carl, Rye, Dan. Thanks for bringing well-informed, educated basketball takes. Such a pleasant contrast to Cy, who can only glaze JK and hate on Kerr.
I'm not glazing JK. I'm just saying he's never gotten a shot. He's never averaged more than 26 minutes in a game in a season, and that was last year. His minutes went down. He was 7th on the team in minutes this year. Justify that. Everybody who hates me for my rhetoric does so because they're Steve Kerr fanboys. More power to you. He's a head coach. He's flawed. Look at the last 6 years and all the misses that the Warriors have had in these last 6 years. And if you look at it from that prism and not the whole 11 years where the first 5 he had just the most stacked rosters imaginable, you will see he's an incredibly flawed head coach who can be vindictive, who's incredibly egotistical, and who's in a position of power where he's abusing it in this case based off his treatment of one of his star players. That's my take on it. If you don't like it,
I mean, that's fine to have that take, but that is the emperor has no clothes kind of a take when you're talking about a guy who's as accomplished as Kerr. Just know that, and know that you're going to run into an awful lot of opposition, whether you're right or, I mean, it's like you're right, but then the people who are defending Kerr are also right. It's like,
what are you right about? What are they right about? That he should just be
that he's one of the best coaches in the league, and that he's a massive winner as a player, as a coach. He's the Olympic coach. He's as respected as almost any basketball voice in college or pro. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, Cy. So don't take it that way. I'm just saying you're holding him to a high standard and being incredibly critical, and you're on point, and you're on point, and your points are valid. I'm not saying they're not.
I get it. I get all this. My whole thing is, and this is a deeper, maybe philosophical discussion here, but my whole thing is, I don't respect people who get to where they are strictly because someone else appointed them to that position, right? What I mean by that is, for example, we're in this new media paradigm where people are achieving success based off what they can actually do, their talents, right? That is the world we're in now in the media, right? Like, and this is unfortunately the clickbait thing sometimes sucks for that reason. But over a long time, if you have talent, you're probably going to make it. If you don't, you're going to get exposed. But for decades of our lives, all you needed was to kiss one program director's ass, and they're going to give you a broadcasting job. And you're going to get paid handsomely, and you're going to have an audience because the media paradigm was limited in terms of how people can consume media. And so because one person appointed someone else to this position, they automatically have money and power. And I pay attention to nuance. I try to look at like the fine details of every situation. And when it comes to Steve Kerr, I can understand someone who doesn't pay attention to the nitty gritty looking at me going, what the hell are you talking about here, right? I get it if you don't look at this from a microscopic perspective like I do. But when you look at it closely, you're looking at a player who, again, played 20 minutes a night for the Bulls, who played 15 minutes a night for the Spurs, right? And we're sitting here giving him credit for championships. We might as well call Jordan Bell a champion. We might as well call Quinn Cook a champion because they played the same role for the Warriors in 2017-18 that Steve Kerr did for those teams. And then you look at the actual rosters that he's inherited. They're so stacked. But when you look at the nuance, no players developed except for Kevon Looney in 11 years. You look at the fact that the Warriors were awful in 2020, 15 wins, a league worst. And you think to yourself, all right, we get a number 2 pick at least out of this, right? And Steve Kerr's all on board. He starts involving himself really carefully and meticulously. And someone who, like, literally his ethos is a separation of church and state in terms of GM versus coach. Like, he believes in that with conviction, and he says so but then he flaunts that and goes hypocritical by literally inserting himself with the scouting, the drafting, by shutting down trading for Anthony Edwards. He wanted James Wiseman. He literally was interviewing Wiseman's high school teammates in that draft process. He wanted him. So this is a guy who, when you look at
so did Joe. So did Joe.
Fair.
And Joe is the owner. Yeah,
And
I know. Which has a huge say. Guy had a huge say. And his kid
I'll
was
say this: Steve
office.
Kerr, I think he did hit a game winner, didn't he, in the playoffs?
He did
at last second. Didn't
he did.
he? Okay. I was looking at this, and just to give a different side, because I was curious. I looked up the 24-25 NBA GM survey. There was 50 questions, and all these questions about different players. Like Steph's rated like the number one leader who's the best leader, Steph. But they asked which head coach has the best defensive. Oh no, that's not the one. Which head coach runs the best offense? And it was Rick Carlisle, Joe Mazzulla, Chris Finch, and then Steve Kerr. And which head coach makes the best game in adjustments? And it was Ty Lue. I did not see Steve Kerr receive votes there. Which is the best
keep in mind,
motivator?
I'm never critiquing his coaching. It's the personnel decisions. That's the issue I have. Like, I don't think he has a good grasp of who's good and who's bad. He's all about
to be a good coach, though. Don't you have to make personnel decisions? He's ranked the third best coach behind Spoelstra and the OKC coach, Mark
Dagnall,
and then Kerr was third. I mean, you got to be able to. I mean, a coach's job is substitution patterns and
rotations.
I mean, it's not crazy. I mean, there's a lot of people that think that Kyle Shanahan is not a great personnel guy, but he's obviously a very good coach. I would consider Kyle Shanahan a top 5 or 6 NFL coach, and yet I don't think he's probably a top 5 or 6 personnel evaluator. So it's like they're totally different skill sets. I mean, it's the rarest of rare that has that. There are very few guys. I mean, I can't really think of too many at all that have been great coaches and great talent evaluators. I mean, for every, there's Phil Jackson, but he had Rod Thorne, and there was Steve Kerr.
Who's Rod Thorne? What do you mean as a GM? What do you mean?
Rod Thorne drafted Michael Jordan.
It wasn't way back when. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, and like the Warriors, I mean, they had Don Nelson and Larry Riley who drafted Steph Curry. It's like, they made that one great decision that in basketball can set you up.
Nelly credit for that.
Incredible. It totally was Nelly. I mean, you got to remember this. Larry Riley at that point in history had only his NBA chops. The only person he had to thank for even having an NBA career at all was Don Nelson. He was a scout for the Mavericks for years and years. He was Nelly's good old boy buddy. And I'm not saying that Larry Riley didn't have the title, but I talked to Larry Riley about his process going into that Steph Curry draft, and he told me that he gave Don Nelson a group of players that included Steph Curry to watch, and that Nelly wanted Curry. And this is Don Nelson, who at this point in history had already wanted Sidney Moncrief, Terry Cummings, Latrell Sprewell, Mitch Richmond, Tim Hardaway. I mean, lots and lots and lots of good players Nelly had, and Nelly wasn't done because later on he added Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash in the same offseason for the Mavericks. Nelly's a genius. Nelly is a basketball personnel genius. And he told Larry Riley, Steph Curry, they told Steph and Dell, we don't care if you work out for us or not. We're drafting you if you're there. Steph tried to get the Warriors to not take him. Dell tried to get the Warriors to not take Steph. And Larry Riley and Don Nelson said, screw you. We're going to take who we want to take, and we're taking you. So that's where this thing turned around. But you have to have your courage of your convictions in a personnel sense to make the right decision. Now, Kerr's a great, guy as far as bringing everybody along for the most part, and he got that from Phil Jackson. But I don't think Steve is some awesome personnel guy, and that's why it was so incredibly valuable to have Jerry West. That's why it was so valuable to be. That's why the $2 million or $3 million or $5 million or whatever it was that they were paying Jerry West was worth every penny, because he had the clarity of thought when it came to personnel to say, yes, we want to keep Klay Thompson. We don't want to move him for Kevin Love. Yes, we want this guy. No, we don't want that guy. So, and then when they lost Jerry West, suddenly here's Justinian Jessup. Here's Nico Mannion.
With low draft picks, though, Larry. I mean, that's the part. I don't want to, like, you're
but I'm
right.
just saying, with their second round picks, they were bombing horribly, taking these wild stabs on these nothing guys. When they got Draymond Green.
Draymond Green wasn't a wild stab, and that
no, I know, but they had Jerry. They had Jerry when they drafted Draymond and Harrison Barnes and Festus. They had Jerry then. He was in the organization. He was gone by the time they started taking these other wild stabs.
And Jerry West is also, Larry, Jerry West was also responsible for the Paul George trade, which is going to go down as one of the worst trades in NBA history. You gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
He's a kingmaker, though.
But I'll defend Jerry on that, because he did say wasn't he the one who drafted SGA?
Yeah.
I think he was the one who drafted SGA, and then he said for years SGA is untradeable, and he refused to move him in any package. And the only reason why that ended up happening is it was to get Kawhi Leonard. Like, they had to do it. Like, in order to get Kawhi,
it's just easy to cherry pick, like, when to credit West for something, and then when to
Jerry
say
West. He basically turned Shaq. He turned Magic and Kareem into like three different generations of winning eras of NBA basketball. So, I mean, he is considered by most as the best personnel guy in NBA history.
No disagreement there.
But Nelly's right there. My point is just that I love Kerr, but the odds were never that he was going to have personnel chops. I never really expected him to. And if he did, I would have been shocked.
Well, and he didn't. He wasn't a part. Like, for example, when the Warriors signed DeMarcus Cousins in 2019, right? Like, that was not a Steve Kerr move. Like, Steve Kerr used to sit back and let the front office do his thing. 2020 is when it changed. They had the number 2 pick in the draft, and Steve Kerr decided to insert himself in influencing who they're going to pick with that draft selection, and the rest is history. I have very conflicted feelings about Nelly, Larry, for a couple of reasons. Like he's one of the reasons why I am the way I am emotionally about the small ball bullshit. Like, I grew up with Nelly ball. I hated small ball back then. And the fact that it's back, and I think this is the difference between an older fan like me and a lot of these younger fans who did not watch the Don Nelson era and watch a coach who thought, oh, small is better than size. Like, it didn't work then. It only worked now because of Stephen Curry. That's the only reason why it's working now. It is absurd to me to disregard size and athleticism in a sport like basketball, in the same way that it would be absurd to disregard size as an O-lineman in football, right? Like, a 250-pound person is not going to be an O-lineman in the NFL. But imagine if some coach is like, well, I think the speed can outweigh the actual size of the person. It's just physics. It's basic physics. Size is important in basketball. Nelly's small ball shit. Look, he put Run TMC together. Great. He also broke it up to get Billy Owens. Not great. He also totally bungled the Chris Webber situation. There was a lot that Don Nelson did that left much to be desired. But look, you're absolutely right that he is incredible in terms of hiring Larry Riley. Stephen Curry loves Larry Riley, the GM, so much he named his first daughter Riley after the GM. And so that's how important Larry Riley was to Stephen Curry. But the small ball thing, man, like, the fact that we're another coach is doing this shit, I'm fed up.
It's because he's done it. They do it in practice, and they see when they go smalls against bigs that the smalls always win. And then the bigs are always bothered by the athletic smalls. And and usually also, when you do go small against a team that's going big, they stop playing in the flow of the game and they start hunting for the mismatches. And sometimes that makes that kills their rhythm offensively. So there's a belief that you can speed teams up, that you can cause turnovers, that you can make them uncomfortable, that you can get them to play your game. You can kind of lure them into your game. And then some teams, let's be honest, when Nelly was doing it, some of the bigs that he was going against were relatively unathletic bigs that if you force them to be defended by a smaller guy, they were easily pickable and turnoverable. So I think there's a lot of factors that played into it. I know talking to Tolbert all those years, doing the radio show with him, that, Nelly would do this as a way to kind of, kill the monotony of the season. Is like, all right, guys, let's have all the bigs, let's go 5-on-5 against all the smalls. And just let's have some fun, right? Let's laugh a little bit as, Mr. Jennings is trying to go up against Carlos Rogers or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I think, but in the process of doing that, I think he also saw that they're in a short spurt. Sometimes the smalls can have advantages. Sometimes the smalls can make a team uncomfortable. And sometimes big players, when guarded by smaller players, don't feel comfortable at all putting the ball on the deck. They want to pass the ball. They don't have the same offensive game. So there's a lot of factors at work here. I generally agree. I mean, you gotta give this to Nelly. Even in all those years where they were playing small ball, the holy grail was always, can you get a Chris Webber? Can you get a 6'9", 6'10" guy with long arms who's athletic enough to play with the small, skilled enough to score with the smaller players, but also big enough to block shots and give you a presence? So, I mean, they always were looking for that piece. I've almost felt like they played small out of necessity more than anything. Let me hit a couple more of these supers, though.
Yeah.
HR says, been watching the Warriors for 35 years. Sai's right about Kerr. His rotations are inane. Moody, JK, Pods have been misdeveloped.
It goes beyond that. I mean, go even further. Like Damian Jones, first round pick. Nice knowing you. What was the guy? Jacob Evans III. Nice knowing you. Side note, Jacob Evans III, in case folks forgot, he came back to the Warriors, right? He was part of the trade that brought Andrew Wiggins to the Warriors. He comes back to try to resurrect his NBA career, and he's 6'4", okay? He plays for Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz plays him at center. That's a true story, man. It's a different beast. And again, I think it works when you have Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson as your backcourt, right? Never mind the fact that Klay Thompson's 6'7" and was an awesome defensive player. Never mind the fact that you had like Sean Livingston at 6'8" coming off the bench, Andre Iguodala. This team had perfect personnel. But I started noticing weird stuff, and I mentioned this before, as far back as 2018, when the Warriors and the Rockets played in the Western Conference Finals that year. I actually looked back at the box scores just to see like how far back is this craziness started. And again, he DNP'd JaVale McGee for the entire series. JaVale McGee was the team's starting center that year. He resurrected his career with the Warriors because remember, JaVale McGee was like borderline done. And then the Warriors took a spin on him. He's actually playing fantastic. He's a lob threat. He's playing defense. And the Warriors would have finished that series in 5 games, man. They would have clean shop just like this series. They would have clean shop if the right players played. Instead, that series went to a game 7. You needed the Rockets to go 0 for 27 from 3 to survive that 7-game series. A team with Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry barely survived that series. And it's because JaVale McGee was DNP'd the entire series. David West, in case you forgot him, was on that team. DNP'd for almost the entire series. Steve Kerr has a weird way of looking at connectivity. And, and he values speed, I think, way more than most other coaches. But I guess like I care so much right now because I do believe with conviction. Like I guaranteed it a month ago, and then I pulled back when I realized Steve Kerr values GP2 more than Kuminga. But this team can win the title this year. I don't know if you guys think I'm crazy saying that. I firmly believe it. The landscape is set up for the Warriors to win 12 more games and win a championship. But you got to play the right players, man. And this is why this is Steve Kerr's chip. If they win a 5th championship this year, this is Steve Kerr's chip because you got to play the right guys. And if you do, you're winning a title, man. I believe that with utmost. I
mean, that would be incredible. Marcus Texas should have traded Kuminga for Vucevic.
Yes.
We need a center.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have that kind of shooter.
Why didn't they communicate about that? Like, why was there no, like, there's something going on here that's amiss, right? Like, Like, how do you like go along with the Jimmy Butler trade and then tell your front office, well, I had to see Jimmy and Kuminga on the court together before deciding that our third leading scorer doesn't fit with those two. Like,
well, you gotta remember the bottom line is Joe owns the team. Joe loves Kuminga. I think everybody's. This is why they've gotten to this point. SRT says MJ didn't have rings before Phil. Steph was getting bounced in the second round before Kerr. Coaching absolutely matters in all sports.
Phil Jackson.
We got this one. MSQ. Without one another, Curry wouldn't be this successful. We got Armando Lara. JK has to shoot 100% for guys like Ryan to think he has a good game. God, Alan Johnson says Cy is 1,000% right. Don't see you guys ever criticizing Pods. He throws up shitty shots and never gets pulled. Cy's completely right. O'Shea wrong.
O'Shea wrong.
Diami Drums says give Cy back his meds. Annoying. Even spelled Cy with a PSI. PSY. Talk to him nice. As Kerr had developed Poole, Pods, Loon, and Cy, beloved JK. Cyrus can't name one young player who's left and been better away from Kerr.
Because Kerr destroyed him.
Let me know when it happens.
I've actually got one. Ty Jerome.
Well,
Ty Jerome, what did he do today?
He had 20.
Yeah, they lost. I mean, that's what matters. Not the points. It's the wins and losses. They lost. I actually,
if you take it that way, though, you got to say Kerr won.
Why? He wanted Ty Jerome.
No, I'm saying Kerr
he plays
won
well
tonight, and Kerr won in 18, even though you went 7. They still won the title. So if all that matters is wins and losses, you have to give Kerr some credit.
Right. But again, this is where, if you look at the nuance of things, what I'm saying here is when you have a team that's stacked, when you have Stephen Curry on your team, and in that year, Kevin Durant, a series like that should not go to 7 games. Look at the Olympics this last summer. Kerr decides to DNP Jason Tatum in that semifinal game against Serbia, right? And that was the second DNP of those Olympics.
It was the right move.
They were down by 17 points. They needed Stephen Curry to go 9 of 14 from 3 and drop.
But he did it. But he did it.
Right. But my point is, like, what is Steve Kerr like Notre Dame? Like, he just knew Stephen Curry was gonna like have the game of his life after struggling the entire Olympics.
He's a visionary.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We get this one from 6 Minute Abs. T-Wolves didn't look good against LaFlop. Sasha Jones in the house. She says Moody Moody and Kuminga would never be allowed to miss as many shots as Pods missed tonight. Also, Moody is a better defender than Pods, had huge rebounds tonight, and played better D on Fred VanVleet versus Pods.
Yeah, let me just say
I thought I like Pods at times, but and there's things about him I admire. But you know what? I think he's trade bait in the offseason.
I'll say this:
he can't finish inside, and his form on his shot changes. It seems like every other game. I don't think it's ever going to have the level of consistency to really be awesome. And I know he does some good things, but find somebody who loves him.
He's the second best ball handler on the team.
That's
why he's in there.
But he can't finish inside, so it's like, and he's not a great shooter.
I'll say this about Kuminga.
No one can on this team.
I'll say this about Kuminga and trading him. Part of the job of a GM is to look at the horizon, and you got to realize that Kuminga's going to get a big offer in the offseason. And rather than trade him for just Vukovic, you might be able to get a real star player. He's going to make 30 to 35 million.
Yeah, no, Vucevic sounds nice in a text or in a chat, but it's going to look really bad compared to what they actually get when they actually.
Yeah, they're going to get somebody really good in the off season because of somebody's going to offer Kuminga a big amount, and Warriors are going to work out a sign and trade, and they will get a player that's making pretty good money that will fit their scheme.
Wiggins.
I will say this.
It might be Wiggins. Yeah.
Cam Johnson.
Earlier, you could do better. But look, earlier in the show, I think Rye, you said that the Warriors don't have a shot at getting Giannis, like they don't have the assets. I disagree.
Yeah.
You look at the Warriors. Let's say a hypothetical trade. Jonathan Kuminga signed a trade, right?
Okay.
Moses Moody's making $13 million. Pajemski's making what, like $7 million? Buddy Hield makes like $9 million. You add that and throw in like every draft pick you can throw in, right? Because you have limitations to that as well. You can only do it every other year, for example.
Yeah.
I think the Warriors are just as in this as anyone else, man, because what you're offering to Milwaukee in that situation, besides the fact that you need Giannis to be happy, like they're not going to trade, like force a Giannis trade.
That's what they have. That's what they have is that Giannis loves Steph.
Exactly. And Giannis likes Steph. You're selling the dream of Giannis, Steph, Dre, and Jimmy Butler on the team together. Like, sign me up for that. And I think there's a hint of realism there.
Really?
Like, I know the Rockets and the Thunder, they have more draft picks they can throw, but they don't have players who are young and can play now. The Warriors do have that they can offer, who are also very young. I think.
But if you're the problem is I just don't think if I'm Milwaukee, I just dropped a water bottle with my toe. I don't know if I'm the Bucks. I don't think I want Kuminga. I don't think I want Kuminga to be like the centerpiece of that. When you can potentially get like Jalen Green, they might even be able to get Şengün. Plus any more. I mean, like there's so many guys on the Rockets bench, whether it be Jabari Smith or your Cam Whitmore or Reed Shepherd. Like it's just a lot of like lottery tickets and guys that play really well together.
You might be right.
Versus like we're just talking about Moody and Pods and Buddy. Plus get this, you can have Kuminga coming off his all-time low stock. Is that what you want? No, I don't think so.
Well, hopefully, hey, since they got a whole nother series, maybe they can get lucky and turn his stock around.
You never know.
Yeah, that too.
We got MSQ's size Kerr take can be used for Pop Phil, J Coach.
And I'll tell you why.
Etc.
Phil Jackson won 11. All right. So Kerr hasn't even hit the halfway point for that. All right. But Pat Riley to me is another example of a brilliant head coach who still at 80 plus years of age is now just has Spo as an extension of his brilliance. But Pat Riley is another brilliant coach that I put on the Mount Rushmore. The thing is,
Pop?
and then Popovich. I know people love him and they adore him, and I guess I'm the guy who's going to have unpopular opinions for most nights here, but I don't care. I'd rather die on a hill that's honest than try to make people like me or be happy. Like that's just not how I roll, man. I'd rather just give you the truth, whether you like it or not. And when it comes to
the rest of us are just here for smiles. But go ahead.
Sorry, folks. But I will say this: Popovich, he did two things that are blemishes on his resume, right? One of them was and it's a miracle that he got saved for this decision. But when he took Tim Duncan out of the game at the end of the 2013 NBA Finals, Game 6, the one where LeBron misses the three, Ray Allen gets it back from an offensive rebound. That offensive rebound never happens if Tim Duncan's in the game. And Greg Popovich pulled a Steve Kerr where he thought he was too smart for his own good, takes Tim Duncan out. That decision bites them in the ass, and they lose that NBA Finals. Greg Popovich was insanely lucky to have Kawhi Leonard emerge as a player in his roster the next season. But that's also a ding on Kerr because Kerr has never developed anyone. Popovich has developed Kawhi Leonard. Also, at the same time, a blemish on Popovich's resume is losing Kawhi Leonard, right? So I look to me like the greatest all-time coaches don't do things that make you scratch your head in hindsight. Phil Jackson never did anything that made me second guess him, ever. Pat Riley never did anything that made me second guess him, ever. Greg Popovich made me second guess him twice.
Yeah, but just to play devil's advocate,
yeah.
You said you could win a title with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Did Phil Jackson win a title with the Bulls without MJ?
No, but he did take a team without MJ to the playoffs. And when Steve Kerr had a team that was weak, they won 15 games, then he blew the lottery pick. That's the difference, right?
Alan Johnson
without Jordan
there was no
relevant.
The better equivalent would be like if that happened, I don't know, in 17 or something, when they still had like pretty prime Draymond, and Draymond was there for the whole season instead of getting injured, plus Clay, plus maybe some of their awesome role guys still there. I mean, look, Kerr, I guess the closest you could say to something like that is probably when they won a couple games versus the Trailblazers without Steph in the playoffs. I think they went undefeated and won that series without Steph.
Series,
or was it the Rockets?
There's always
championships. When Phil took over the Lakers, Kobe Bryant was 21 years of age, right? So Phil has already proven that he could take young pieces and turn them into champions and a dynasty.
But don't you think Kobe turned himself into Kobe? I mean,
I don't know. I don't think Phil hurt. I don't think Phil hurt in the pro. I mean, Phil.
Well, then you got to give credit for Curry to Kerr for Curry getting better.
And
I give Mark Jackson credit for Curry.
Well, I give Kerr tons of credit for the last championship. I mean, if you remember that year, the Warriors weren't the most talented team. They just didn't. They stayed together. The rest of those teams fractured and kind of fell by the wayside. I mean, part of it is it's a war of attrition and the last man standing. You also worked some new guys in there. I mean, there were some guys there. The Georgetown guy who shot threes. They had
Otto Porter Jr.
Yeah, they had some other players that they worked
veterans that Bob Myers signed that were perfect.
That played really good roles in that run. Alan
but
Johnson says,
I don't know why you credit Steve Kerr for that. That's where I look at Bob Myers.
He showed that he could do it with brand new players and a whole new mix. I mean,
I would say he gets credit
I don't think they were the best team.
I don't know. I'm not impressed by that. Like keep in mind too, that team, if you look at the minutes, like Damian Lee and Juan Toscano Anderson were often getting minutes over players that should have been playing. Like Steve Kerr does so much shit.
Won the title. They had a parade.
What's up?
I won the title.
I know, but again, I credit Steph. I almost feel like you're disrespecting Steph's greatness by pretending that Steve Kerr, who just sits there and yells and makes
That's great that you credit Steph, but Steph were here, he'd credit Steve. Maybe. So, I mean, he probably would.
He's a humble man.
Probably would. Alan Johnson says, this is insane. This is insane, guys. How can you not see that Jonathan Kuminga is not getting fair treatment? Had to send another chat. So pissed. Compared him to Pods. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. There's no question that Steve, I mean, I said this the other day. I don't think Steve does this without talking to Steph. I don't think Steve does this without talking to Draymond. I don't think Steve does this without talking to Jimmy. I just don't think that you don't include your biggest stars in a decision like this. So I really think that he's just doing what they've all decided they're going to do, which is they're going to try to do this without Kuminga. I think it's stupid. To me, I don't think they can do it without Kuminga, and to even try to do it without Kuminga is idiotic. But I do believe that Kerr talks to his teammates or talks to his players and treats them almost like teammates. Because I know Steve. Because I know fucking Steve. Because I talked to Steve many times on the air, off the air, on the record, off the record. He talks to Steph. He talks to Draymond.
About personnel decisions and minutes and locations?
Yes, he talks to these guys. These guys are not just – these guys have much more of an active role in the running of this team than probably any guys in the entire league.
I don't know. It's
I bet you anything that's the case. And I know from talking to Steve about the way he talks to them that they're in this dialogue. Now, I don't have ironclad proof that Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler are the reason that Jonathan Kuminga is not playing. I just heavily suspect it.
Hey guys, I got a bolt here because I got to get a few things done, and I actually had a live stream going for the last hour. But
all I know is, Larry, is I've got sources too. I hear shit too, and I've never gotten an inkling from anyone, and there's no confirmation anywhere that confirms that Steve Kerr is getting advice from Steph or Draymond in regards to who should and shouldn't play. We don't know that as a fact. To me, when you say
my uncle could beat both of your uncles up.
Well, first of all, you're acting like there wasn't a Hamptons recruiting of Kevin Durant.
Kerr
what do you think that was?
Kerr wasn't there for that.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying he was, but the players were there.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a superstar you're recruiting and a young player who needs minutes and development. I don't know if Steph and Dre are having meetings with the coaches on that. I need to know for sure.
I'm just telling you that that's what I think. I don't know. I don't know.
And I'm telling you, I think that. I don't know what to think, but I'm not going to just jump to the conclusion without knowing the facts that that's what's going on here. Because
that's what I think. I don't think it's reasonable or plausible to think that a decision of that magnitude that directly affects Steph Curry's chances of winning a ring in his twilight years. I don't think it's plausible.
Well, welcome to my
Steve
frustration,
would
Larry.
do this without.
Welcome to my frustration. Welcome to my frustration for Steve Kerr, because I do think, based on watching what this guy does as the commander of this ship, how he runs it for 6 years, I don't think he's doing that. And I'm basing it largely off what I hear myself and public comments. Stephen Curry 3 weeks ago came out and said, we're not winning this thing. We're not going all the way if Jonathan Kuminga is not a part of it. And then right after that, he's getting DNP'd. I don't know what to believe, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do know, and that's a fact. We don't know that. But Steve Kerr, I've seen enough to know that I can't come to the conclusion that what he's doing is this sensical thing, because he rarely does sensical things. I can't.
But I mean, you said it. You just said it. You don't know. I mean,
you don't know either. But you're pretending you do know.
No, I don't. I
don't
know.
I
didn't. Sorry. Okay. Get it together. I just said I don't know. This is what I think. I'm just telling you, this is what I think. I didn't say.
You're saying you think that based on
that. This is what I think based on my conversations with Steve. That he actually makes. I think he puts Draymond and Steph and Jimmy at the head of the table, and I think there's many examples that we could point to where they are at the head of the table.
Name one.
I don't have definitive proof. We're just going to leave it there.
I think that doesn't happen. I've interviewed.
Okay, that's
Steve
fine. You stated it already. You stated it already. You don't need to.
Well, I don't think it. There you go.
That's fine. Diami Drum says, dude, Cy obviously brings some kind of small man complex here. Chill out. What are you a champion of? Humility much? All right, let's just easy on that.
Fuck you.
Fozzie, Cy thinks Doc Rivers can win this with Steph and KD.
Dude, Monty Williams could have won with Steph and KD. Get the hell out of here. What are you
Kid Trickster, serious question. Is Amen Thompson what we thought JK would be? I think they're very comparable, to be very comparable. I think that's a good comp. Good defender, some limitations offensively. Yeah, I can see the comp. O'Shea Barton.
Here's the thing. So Amen Thompson, the first thing I think of when people bring comps like this up is how many minutes is this guy getting, right? Because how the hell can you prove yourself if you're not actually playing? Jonathan Kuminga has ever averaged over 26 minutes a game. Amen Thompson this season averaged 32.3. So we're seeing what happens when you play someone, and you see what happens when you don't play someone. We have no clue what he's going to end up being because he doesn't play. And that is easily the best methodology for development and growth.
Look at Houston and Thompson and all these young guys. They've got a perfect spot for they can just grow together, and it's just perfect for them. Where Kuminga got drafted into a situation where there already was a dynasty, and he's got to play this incredibly efficient ball at all times. They're always seeing what he can't do. They're always seeing his limitations. So it's. I
want to elaborate real fast. By the way, a couple people in the chat are saying there goes Cy again talking over people like he's the host. Newsflash: I am one of the two fucking hosts tonight. This is a Golden Days dual stream. This is as much my show as Larry's. So understand that before you think that I'm just like talking over people. This is a dual stream. This is Golden Days and the Krueg Show tonight. So just want that fact out there before you make assumptions.
O'Shea Barton says, watching this series, JK is green, Pods is Fred. Fried? Finished? What's
I don't
Fred?
see it. I don't see what.
Oh, Fred VanVleet. Fried, maybe.
Fred Flintstone?
I don't know.
Oh, Fred VanVleet.
Maybe Fred VanVleet.
He's saying that JK is Jalen Green and Pods is VanVleet.
There we go.
There you go. No cap 757. If JP were here, they win in 4 or 5.
Agreed. Oh, no. I thought you said JK. I apologize. No, yeah. If Kuminga had
Jordan
a heavy
Poole?
role in this series, they win in 5. I would agree with that if he said that.
He's talking about Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
MK, 2 things can be true. Kerr is slightly overrated, and Cy is making an awful argument for why.
A third thing can be true. MK, you're wrong.
Christopher Andrew, Cyrus sounds like an entitled child.
That would be cute if I had any sense of actual entitlement or any privilege in my life to make me feel entitled. Motherfucker, I came from nothing. No one ever handed me a thing in this world. I've had no privilege. So F you for thinking I'm entitled to something.
Right,
I root for the underdog.
dude.
Steve Kerr is not the underdog in this. Steve Kerr is the one with the power in this dynamic. And I'm sticking up for the guy who has no power, who's getting screwed over by the person who has all the power. That's my take on it.
D. Watt, just like JaVale McGee was, Kuminga has been a liability on both ends. If you disagree with Kerr's decisions with him, you don't know ball. Now Kerr giving Looney minutes tonight. Checkmate. All right. Christopher Andrew, Kerr, champ, player, coach, Cy, old guy yelling like baby.
If I had Kerr's privilege in my life, you'd see a lot of different results.
Trilogy 3 just said, hey, here, $2. Alan Johnson says JK and Moody both played 2022 finals.
Yeah.
Then Kerr failed to even play them the next season. Lamb and Jerome played, and they were never developed. That choice arguably stunted the growth of JK and Moody. That's Chat GPT. That's Chat GPT.
I mean, they did play. Like Moody was starting games in that 2022 run against the Mavericks, I believe, and then Kuminga was starting against the Grizzlies.
Trilogy says, "Is this Cyrus guy always on the show? What the fuck is this?" Come on, man. Size emotional.
Stream, and if you want to hear more truth instead of more Kerr propaganda, the show is called Golden Days.
There you go. All right. We've been going for 2.5 hours. We're going to call it right here. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueg Show. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for sponsoring the Krueg Show as well. Cy, go ahead, shout out your sponsors and let's thank everybody.
Thank you to my 2 primary title sponsors.
Ringo.
What's up? Oh,
Ringo.
Hey, but what's the dog's name?
Ringo.
Ringo. Hi, Ringo. Hey, buddy.
I had to just bring some good vibes in here to end the show.
Yeah,
And a couple people chat are like, why is this so or why am I all fired up? It's because if you missed the beginning, we had a 5th person on this panel who just didn't want to have a conversation, who just wanted to make a claim. And then when I followed up and wanted to know, what are you basing that on? His response was, I just know, or I don't even know what he said. And that, I'm sorry, that did rile me up because I haven't experienced absurdity like that in a very long time, where someone is coming on a program where the entire premise is communication, talking, and he doesn't want to talk. He just wants to make some random opinion that pushes back against mine. And then when I follow up and ask why, he says, because. Like, that will rile me up. If I ever ask someone why, and your answer is because, yeah, you're going to rile me up, man, especially on a program. So that's why I am the way I am tonight.
I mean, I'll say this. Carl made a mistake because you don't hide things from the audience.
No.
You either don't, but sometimes you just got to be a little bit more gracious and just allowing him to duck out with what, he didn't want to get into it, and you wanted to push him on it, and it just got a little,
if you don't want to get into it,
got a little uncomfortable. He made a mistake, Cy. He made a mistake. Okay.
I guess. But anyway, but I want to give props to Decades. Again, go to decadesofficial.com. This is a cover band that plays everything from Katy Perry to today, the 50s to today. They're locals that play all the Red Zone rallies at 49ers pregame shows, and they could be there for you, for your fundraiser, for your wedding, for your anniversary, for a birthday, for a good old-fashioned backyard rager, whatever it is that you need live music for, the Catalina Wine Mixer. If you're trying to recreate the greatness that Prestige Worldwide once upon a time busted out, hire them. Go to decadesofficial.com for more information, or email kyle@atomicmusicgroup.com. Tell them any of us sent you, and you'll get a discount. Today's episode also brought to you by Visit Humboldt, an incredible tourist destination. It's beautiful. It's an unbelievable getaway to lower your stress. Great great breweries. I don't know if any of you gentlemen have ever had a Steelhead beer. It is delicious, and you could thank me later if you've never had that. And the brewery is up in Humboldt County. So visit Humboldt.com or just shoot me a DM. I used to go to Cal Poly Humboldt. That's what they now call Humboldt State University. So thank you to visit Humboldt.com, and thanks to you guys. I appreciate it. And sorry that I got riled up, but I'm not sorry. I wish, it's unfortunate that it got to that, but I don't put up with that shit, man. And Carl should have known better. Anyways, I'm done.
Cy, do you want to apologize to Kerr?
No.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what